Doug, you work here.
When in doubt.
Fourth time I did that.
Guess that's working. Alrighty, council, I'll call us to order at 7 o'clock. I welcome everybody here to our council chambers that are here in person and those who are watching us live streaming on Rogers. Thanks for participating. Council, if you can join me in the council commitment, please. We're grateful for the many gifts which have been bestowed on Penetang Machine and its citizens, including the gifts of freedom, opportunity, and peace that we enjoy. May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. We ask that all in attendance and those who cannot be here to assist us in promoting good government. May our decisions as members of council be enlightened, and may we all be strengthened in our awareness of our duties and responsibilities. May we be granted the wisdom, knowledge, will, and understanding to preserve the good fortune of the town for the benefit of all, to make good laws and wise decisions. Thank you very much. Next item in front of us is the approval of the agenda. It's moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Saunders, that the agenda of the regular council meeting of 2018, of June 27th, 2018, be approved as presented. Any comments, questions on tonight's agenda? See none, I'll call for vote. All in favor? That is approved. The next item in front of us is item number 4, pecuniary interest. Does any member of council have pecuniary interest in tonight's session? Councillor Rawson, please.
Thank you, Worship. On item 10A, the preliminary report, and inside the preliminary report is item 7B4. It's a site plan regarding 177 Robert Street East, declaring a conflict as I'm an owner of Class 1 subject property.
Thank you very much for that. So that's item 10 on your planning. And just sort of quick, so I noticed that county council now, when we have a pecuniary interest, is now documented, written down. Do we have to get to doing that ourselves now, or is that next term of council?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, that requirement actually comes in March 2019, so we haven't started it yet, but we will get there.
No, thank you. It just came up the other day, county council, so I thought I'd ask for just for clarification. Next one in front of us is a public meeting on the 2 properties on Polish Avenue, both for removing the H symbol. So this is a public meeting under the Planning Act to consider an application to amend town zoning bylaw to remove a holding H symbol from the properties at 73 Polish Avenue and 77 Polish Avenue. And if I could have our planner, director of planning, introduce this application, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. We have received 2 applications to remove the holding H symbol from the properties on Polish Avenue that you referenced earlier. And I can confirm that notice was given via circulation with the neighbors. And to date, we've not received any correspondence with respect to the removal of the holding H symbol.
Thank you very much for that. Anyone from the audience wish to speak to this application? Any member of council have any clarification questions for our planner? So thank you very much. Then we'll just adjourn that portion and move on to the rest of our council meetings. So we have next is presentations, and we do have 5 presentations tonight. So I'd ask our presenters to stay within that 10-minute time frame, if you could, please. I'll kind of give you maybe a 1-minute warning just to let you know to wrap it up if need be. So the first one in front of us is Collins Barrow on her audited financial statements.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Your Worship, members of council, for having me here tonight. My name is Jay Anstey. I'm the audit partner with Collins Barrow, or Collingwood office. It's good to see you again. I wasn't here too long ago. I was here for the 2016 financial statement in November, and it's good to be here so early this year. The audit process was a very smooth one, and I think that speaks to the preparedness of Kerry and the finance team. So I would like to start off by thanking them for their complete cooperation during our audit process. I am here tonight for the 2017 Consolidated Audit Report. We have rendered a clean audit opinion on the financial statements, which is consistent with prior years of audits of the town. The financial statements are in draft form and dated for today's date, under the assumption that they are recommended for approval tonight. My purpose here tonight is to give you an understanding of the financial statements. So I'll go through them as follows. In terms of operating results for the 2017 fiscal year, operating revenues of $16.8 million have increased over 2016 by $700,000. $500,000 is from the increase in taxation revenue. Operating expenses of $15.8 million are $600,000 higher than 2016. The main increases in operating expenditures are salaries and amortization expense. It's important to note when looking at operating expenditures that included in the actual figures is $2.6 million. I believe the slide in front says $1.8 million. That should say $2.6 million of amortization expense. Amortization expense is the accounting entry to systematically depreciate capital assets. This isn't a cash expenditure. So when you're comparing budgeted operating expenditures to actual operating expenditures, the budget figure doesn't include any amount for amortization expense. What this means that the actual cash operating expenditures are only $13.2 million, or $500,000 under budget. Net revenues overall were higher than expenditures by $983,000. Again, excluding amortization expense, this would have been net revenues of $3.5 million. $1.3 million of which we will see was transferred to reserves. $300,000 has remained as a general surplus. $250,000 was used towards repayment of long-term debt, and the remainder used to acquire tangible capital assets. Capital revenues are presented separately, as these are all funds directly received and spent on tangible capital assets. Capital revenues mainly include $400,000 of development charges utilized, as well as $100,000 in government grants. The decrease in government grants compared to the prior year is a result of 2016, including a government grant for Champlain Road. In 2017, there was a budget amount for Main Street, which the project was delayed, so we would expect to see those revenues be recognized in 2018. I'll now move to the financial position as of the end of 2017. Starting with cash of $13.1 million, which is up $3.6 million over the prior year. In terms of provincial indicators, the province would like to see about, at any given time, 10% of operating expenditures available in cash balances. At the end of 2017, the town's cash balance would cover 82.6% of its expenditures. So a very safe amount considered a low-risk area, so the town is very liquid. Included in $13.1 million is $4.6 million of restricted cash, and this is external restrictions such as development charges or government grants, that those monies have to be spent on specific purposes. But again, excluding that $4.6 million, there's still a healthy amount of cash in the bank. Taxes receivable represent outstanding property taxes uncollected from ratepayers. A common municipal indicator for this is the amount of taxes levied compared to the amount of taxes still outstanding. At the end of 2017, 5.8% of the taxes levied remained uncollected. This is in line with provincial averages and in the middle range of all the municipalities that are firm audits. What this indicates is that the town is able to, or that the ratepayers are able to pay the amount of taxes levied, and that there are systems in place to put in place by the town in order to collect these taxes. On the liability side of the statement of financial position, the two significant balances are temporary loan, which is to finance the wastewater treatment plant construction, as well as long-term liabilities, which mainly relates to a loan for a fire truck. The fire truck loan decreased by $250,000 of regular repayments, and there were also $220,000 of interest paid for total debt costs of $476,000 during the year. Compared to the provincial set annual repayment limit of $4.2 million, debt costs were only 11% of the maximum allowable amount of annual debt costs. The provincial indicator commonly used to compare how much revenue raised will go towards debt costs. Only 2.8% of the town's revenue is used for debt, which again is in the low risk range and well below the provincial average of 41%. This is one risk area that we will see change going forward as the temporary loan is converted into a debenture and principal repayments begin, in addition to financing anything related to Main Street reconstruction. A good indicator of the town's financial position is net assets or net debt. Financial assets are those that can be used to pay outstanding liabilities or converted into cash to pay them. Overall, the town is in a net debt position with financial assets $3.7 million below the liabilities. We do see many municipalities in the net debt position, and the provincial indicators would still consider a town to be low risk, as long as their net debt is less than half of their revenue from taxation and user charges. The town does fall into the low risk category, and it's important to remember that most of the liabilities outstanding are not currently due, but the financial assets that the town holds are very liquid, mainly cash and accounts receivable. Non-financial assets are those that aren't available to pay liabilities, but instead are used in the performance of services. Tangible capital assets make up the bulk of this balance, and consist of items such as building, land, equipment, vehicles, and your infrastructure, water, sewer, roads. The town added $2.2 million of capital assets during the year. Large additions included Thompson Road West Extension, Albert Street East Sidewalk, replacement of a rubber tire loader, and deposit on a new pumper truck. Additions of $2.2 million were offset by $2.6 million of amortization expense, for a net decrease in tangible capital assets of $400,000. This is one area that the town is in a moderate risk range, just squeaking over that low risk range, and well below the high risk range. What this indicator is saying that assets are depreciating faster than they are being replaced. This is a very common trend among all municipalities, and it's one of the reasons that tangible capital asset accounting was brought into place for better asset management. The tank machine is one of the lower ends because there have been some good asset replacement projects, and Main Street is a good example of that. Aging infrastructure is being replaced, but the province would like to see continued efforts to both replacing these, adding capital levies to taxes, and increasing reserves as much as possible. The accumulated surplus is displayed on the Statement of Financial Position, Statement of Operations, and further explained in Note 16, and this is the largest number you would see on all of these statements. It's important to understand what makes up the town's accumulated surplus. I remind everyone that this is not $83 million of cash in the bank or investments. This is made up of four main components. $76 million has been spent on tangible capital assets, as I just explained. This is calculated as $86 million that I just mentioned, less the $10 million that has been financed by loans. $830,000 of the accumulated surplus remains in a general surplus, not allocated to any specific reserve or earmarked for any specific purpose. This figure does include the surpluses and deficits of the Huronia Airport Commission and Severn Sound Environmental Association. $1.2 million of unfunded liabilities are future costs and include employee future benefits and potential landfill closure costs, which will be funded as they actually become due. And lastly, accumulated surplus consists of $7.3 million of reserves and reserve funds set aside by council earmarked internally for specific purposes. The reserve balance remains healthy and has increased by $1.3 million year over year. Provincial standards would like to see the reserves be able to cover 20% of annual operating expenses, where the town could cover 46.4%, again in the low risk range. The reserves on the financial statements are grouped into these subcategories presented here, but internally are broken down even further into specific earmarks for specific accounts for specific purposes. Again, I would like to point out the importance of continuing to build the reserves for capital purposes, and particularly the replacement of tangible capital assets, which council has done this year with a $600,000 increase in the capital purposes reserve. It is also important to point out on the slide that $6.5 million of reserves relates to the past sale of hydro, which specific amounts have been borrowed against, but are prudently being replenished in accordance with council direction. Those are the highlights as I see them. I'm happy to field any questions from council today.
Perfect. Well, you practiced 10 minutes right on. Questions for our auditor? Seeing that? Okay, thanks, Jake. Thank you for the report. Thank you for your good work.
Mayor Marshall?
Yes, sorry.
Sorry to interrupt. We actually have a motion related to the auditor's presentation.
All right, we can do that. Right, moved by Councillor Saunders, second by the Deputy Mayor, that the 2017 drafted audit financial statements be approved as presented. All in favor of that motion? And that is carried. Thanks, Stacey. And go on to our next presentation, which is on the broadband gap analysis, and we've got Kristen Roth here to present to us.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Council. I'm just going to see where we are. Reloaded. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Okay. Technology. So thank you, Worship. I'm Chris McLaughlin, General Manager, North Simcoe Community Teachers Development Corporation. As you know, a little over a year ago, North Simcoe Community Teachers Development Corporation, in partnership with the four municipalities, Tay, Tiny, Pentamachine, and then as well as Bozeman First Nation, undertook a broadband gap analysis project for the region. NSCFEC issued a RFP, and the successful vendor was Rob McPhee, who's here with me today to go through the highlights of our findings from the report, and I'll just hand it off to Rob.
Thank you very much, Chris. Your Worship, Mayor Marshall, Council, and members of the staff and public, thank you very much. So we're going to take you through the highlights of the broadband gap analysis for the North Central region. So the background is the purpose of the project. Of course, high-speed internet is going to be an essential service. The question these days is not whether people have high-speed internet or they don't have high-speed internet. That was the last decade's question. The question today is, do you have appropriate high-speed internet? So is it at a speed and service level that is appropriate for the needs of the residents, business, and public? So the North Simcoe Community Futures Development Corporation, Chris's organization, partnered with 5 partners to do this analysis for the region. And the partners, of course, are Chris is championing it with Bozeman First Nation, Inlet, Pentamachine, Township of Tay, and Township of Tiny collectively. Yeah. Thank you. So we want to understand what the current level of high-speed internet connectivity is, and identify it based on data and information that is available and tangible, as opposed to some of the anecdotal information that's out there. And the purpose of those findings are to inform business case development for internet development in the North Central region. So how we approached this project, it was a partner-led assessment. We did a multi-source inventory of high-speed internet data points, and that included collecting data from the internet service provider community, collectively known as the ISPs. We crowdsourced a significant amount of information, so we did a campaign out to the public and received about 2,000 responses where people participated and did a technical test at their location to indicate to us what their high-speed internet performance was, and that was geo-located each of those test results. We collected information that's available in the public domain, and we also had public organizations contribute as well, such as the Simcoe Community Access Network. So that all that information was put together to give us a comprehensive view of the internet service availability in the area, and we did an analysis on that based on the evidence of the data. So the summary findings are that there's a variety of different infrastructures that are available that include fiber optics, cable, digital subscriber lines, fixed wireless in the licensed portion, fixed wireless in the licensed exempt portion, mobile wireless, and also satellite internet connectivity. One of the analysis that we did was penetration. So what percentage of the population has access to high-speed internet? So there's a few different areas here that we broke it down. North Simcoe as a region. Now, the North Simcoe as a region is less Beausoleil First Nation. Beausoleil First Nation for this study has a separate GIS system, so their numbers are encapsulated in this second band. But if we look at the whole region of North Simcoe, residential, 88.6% of people have internet based on the data. 69% of the seasonal population have internet, and 93% of the commercial population. Of course, in your council chambers, the important ones to look at as well are the town of Penetanguishene numbers. And at residential, we have approximately a 97% penetration rate, a 59% seasonal penetration rate, and commercial 100%. So that's just answering the question of whether they have internet or not. So how much internet is enough? So what we did is we compared it to two CRTC policies. The first policy was presented by CRTC in 2011. So this is a previous policy. And at that time, CRTC indicated that download speeds should be available to consumers at 5 megabits per second. It should be available to all Canadians, and it should be met by the end of the year 2015. Right? That's 3 years ago. So why we highlight that is when we actually look at our numbers, how does it relate to that standard that theoretically all Canadians already have. The next measurable policy from CRTC, which came out in 2016, so just 2 years ago, said that they would like Canadians to have a download speed of 50 megabits per second. They would like 90% of the population to have access to that by the end of 2021, and 100% of the population by 2031. So two different standards. The old standard, 5 megabits per second. New standard that we're all shooting for is 50 megabits per second. There's a test on this after, but there's no prizes. Teasing, of course. So I'm going to skip by this slide because this slide is just the reverse of the numbers that we saw previously. This is how many people don't have high-speed internet access, which is just the differential. So what we want to do is first we look at this 5 megabits per second, which we call underserviced areas. What we found in the North Simcoe region for residential permanent population is 22% of the population was underserved at 5 megabits per second. So what we're saying is 22% of the population didn't even meet the 2011 standard. That's what we're saying there. Okay? 33% of the seasonal and 20% of the commercial in all of the North Simcoe region at 5 megabits per second. At the town of Penetanguishene, 6%, 23% and 16% respectively for permanent, seasonal, and commercial. So those are the number of people that don't even meet the 2011 standards. Okay, so a small portion of the population, but still a small portion of the population doesn't meet that standard. If we look now at underservice at 50 megabits per second, so this is the new standard that was declared in 2016, and this is the target that we're all shooting for. In the North Simcoe region, 88%, 69%, and 93% respectively don't have access to 50 megabits per second. I've got about 2 minutes left. So in Penetanguishene, 97%, 59%, and 100% of the commercial don't have access to 50 megabits per second. We also did an analysis on the F-MUSH sector, which is First Nations, municipalities, universities, schools, and hospitals. And these are the groups of types of services that were included in each of those categories. And here's what we found in this sector. In the First Nation sector, 100% of that sector from public service does not have access to 50 megabits per second. In the municipal sector, 58% of those services do not have access to 50 megabits per second. At the University College, 0. Schools, 51% do not. The drilling into the schools proper are actually in reasonably good shape, but also daycares and some other types of early childhood education facilities are lumped in there as well, and that's the portion that really draws that number down. And in health, 27.3% don't have access to 50 megabits per second. So in terms of a relative ranking, we looked at national data, which is crowdsourced data. So all across Canada, right from the west coast to the east coast, these communities are the top 5 communities in the country, download speeds between 50, and I'm just on the last slide, so just tweak it through if I can get about 30 seconds here on Delta. Okay. So 52 down to 37 megabits per second for the top 5. If we look at Ontario, and this was out of 168 community groups we looked at. Ontario ranked 78th, the SWIFT region ranked 93rd, and our stakeholder group here, out of 168, ranked 113th to 167. So out of 168, Bozo Lake First Nation made it into the bottom 5 of 167. So what that means is the North Simcoe region, when you look at it nationally, is in the bottom 25 percentile of high-speed internet connectivity. Now that is somewhat a rural phenomenon. Urban centers, of course, it's a rural challenge, is what it is. We really have covered all this. This is just a summary, so I'll, in the interest of time, I'll just go through these are the partners who contributed, and that's the presentation. So.
Thank you very much for that. Well done. Council, any questions for our guest? Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Your Worship.
I guess my question is, where do we go from here?
So our aim with this report is to seek out infrastructure builds through SWIFT initially. So SWIFT is the Southwestern Integrated Fiber Technology Network, which you're familiar with. So we are going to be approaching them and trying to work with them to have our region to be one of the first areas that are covered with some type of project through that fund. If we're not successful in that manner, then we will be looking at other opportunities that may be out there to support broadband infrastructure in our region.
Thank you.
Councilor Levy, please.
Thank you very much. You mentioned that it was a more rural urban issue. And I also couldn't help but notice that most of the areas with the highest speed are in New Brunswick, and they're very underpopulated areas. Do either of you have any insights on how New Brunswick has managed to lead the way?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. First of all, a very active group out of Fredericton in New Brunswick has pushed that agenda for several years. The other thing is some of those communities are very small. So if you do a lot of development in a small concentrated community, it's easier to mobilize a small community if you go deep and get some very good results. So those communities have sort of jumped the queue, mobilized early, and done that. If you look at it sort of at a population base, generally the larger urban centers beat it out from a population base. Does that answer your question? Okay.
And also just through your the town of Fredericton or the city of Fredericton actually took a municipal approach to the infrastructure build, and there is some information available to you. I can get it for you and send it off if you'd like to see it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you for your work on this. The importance of this work, everybody, is that the SWIFT Fiber project goes from really Washega to Windsor. It's 322 small town communities, villages, hamlets, cities, and towns. So, having that data in front of the SWIFT board when we do get to the decision making, it's important to understand what's going on in each area and the depth of This report will certainly favor this area well for consideration. So well done. Thank you for your work. Next up, we have the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit regarding food insecurity. So, welcome.
Through you, Your Worship, and to members of the council, thank you very much for having Christine Johnston and I here tonight. My name is Christine Bushy. I'm the manager of the Chronic Disease Prevention and Healthy Lifestyle Program. And with me tonight is Christine Johnston, public health nurse who works in the North Simcoe area for the health unit. I'm going to be talking tonight about household food insecurity. I'm going to talk about what it is, what municipalities can do about household food insecurity, and what many of you are already doing. Household food insecurity is really specifically insecure or inadequate access to food, hands down specifically due to poverty. It's a very serious issue in our communities and something that we're here to talk about tonight. It's a fairly widespread problem, although not often a very visible problem. We know that about 1 in 8 residents in Simcoe Muskoka experience some degree of food insecurity every year. So that would represent approximately 70,000 people all across Simcoe Muskoka, roughly the populations of Collingwood, Orillia, and Huntsville combined. For the population of Penetanguishene, it would roughly represent about 1,000 of your residents who experience food insecurity. One of the main reasons for food insecurity, as I mentioned, is income. And some of you may realize or recognize that programs like food charity programs, food banks, soup kitchens, community programs like community gardens and cooking programs and those types of things are often available in communities. One of the things that we want to emphasize is that those types of programs don't solve the root cause of food insecurity. They're very valuable for other purposes. They meet emergency food needs from many, many people. They bring people together to celebrate and have access to food. But when that food is gone, people are food insecure and there isn't enough money to purchase food. We're concerned about food insecurity because it does have a range of impacts on individuals. There are health risks for children who experience any kind of food insecurity at all are at a higher risk of asthma and depression. Our young adults, our youth experience more anxiety, suicide, and depression, and adults experience more chronic diseases like heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, depression, that type of thing. So it costs individuals and families at the level of their health. It costs society and communities at many, many other levels as well. There are tangible healthcare and healthcare usage costs. So in terms of community and society, it does cost us money when people are food insecure because people do access more healthcare services. Someone who doesn't worry about food on a day-to-day basis might use up about $1,600 a year in healthcare costs. Someone who is food insecure, their healthcare usage is about $4,000 a year. Again, because of some of those health impacts that I talked about a minute ago. So 121% higher healthcare costs for people who are food insecure. So reducing food insecurity has tangible benefits. It has tangible benefits in terms of healthcare costs and healthcare usage. It also has many tangible benefits for communities as well. And interestingly enough, for council members, it can help to address issues related to your bottom line. Community well-being, we know, is very important to municipalities, and reducing food insecurity it can make the most effective use of the dollars and the levies that you pay towards those healthcare costs and to provide healthcare services in your communities. It's also important for community well-being. We know that you care about the health of your citizens, and that's really critical. The challenge is, we know that it takes more than food to solve hunger. Community food programs aren't solving the issue. What we need to do is look at income solutions to household food insecurity. Many municipalities, including Penetanguishene, are already taking real tangible action at the community level, specifically to address food insecurity. You have influence over many policies that can help to put money in the pockets of people to help afford food and other basic necessities. The town of Penetanguishene participates in the Economic Development Corporation of North Simcoe, and the mission of that corporation is to promote and foster balanced, sustainable economic growth in North Simcoe, and this supports the attraction of good-paying jobs to your area, which helps to make it more affordable for people to access food. You also have a commitment to attainable and affordable housing, and we know affordable housing helps to offset the cost of food as well. So what we're here today to do is to ask a couple of things of council for your consideration. One is an advocacy ask. At the provincial level, we know that 2/3 of households who receive social assistance don't have enough money for food. 60% of households who are food insecure are working families. They may have low-income jobs or precarious jobs that aren't giving them enough hours a week to pay their bills. So at the provincial level, we're asking for advocacy to increase social assistance rates and index them to the real cost of living. We're asking for advocacy related to the basic income pilot that has been in place for about a year and a half now, and we would like to see that pilot continue. And we're asking for advocacy to encourage legislation and policies to create good jobs and regular hours and benefits. That's at the provincial level. If you're available and willing to do advocacy at the provincial level, we're more than happy to assist you with that. At the local level, there are real tangible things that you can do as well. One of the important things to know about is what poverty looks like in your community, what food insecurity looks like in your community, so roughly 1,000 people in your community. And use that information in your decision making related to policies, planning policies that perhaps focus on affordable housing and where active transportation infrastructure might be available and put into place. So there's real tangible things that a municipality can do in ensuring that low-income neighborhoods are well accessed by convenient grocery stores and active transportation infrastructure. So there's a range of things on this slide that are policy options that could be considered for municipalities. We're also available to provide more information to support you with best practices that other municipalities might be doing, and Christine Johnson is your local contact for that. So if there's anything that you want to be able to do in terms of your own policies and programs, we're available to assist. If there's something that you wanted to do related to provincial advocacy, we're also available to assist with that as well. And just to leave you with a final thought, you've been listening to me speak for about 8 minutes now. We have a very short video that we would like to show you. This video was created by a student in grade 5 at one of our local elementary schools, and he chose household food insecurity as a project that he wanted to do a video on. So with any luck, this video will play.
question.
I'm a grade 5 student working on a project where I pick an issue I'm passionate about and try to help change it. I'm passionate about the issue of food insecurity, which is an inadequate or insecure access to food due to not having enough money. I've been very fortunate to have always had enough food in my house, and I couldn't imagine not having enough. There are people around us who have to make the decision of, should I not eat so I can care? 1 in 8 households in Simcoe, Muskoka is food insecure. As many as 1,500 kids in just Simcoe, Muskoka go to school or bed hungry, often or every day. Adults living in food insecure households account for more than 1/3 of all hospitalizations due to mental health issues. Think about all the kids who have problems with food insecurity and all the potential that was lost because these kids couldn't focus in class or couldn't try their hardest in sports, all because they didn't have enough food to eat, and they were worrying about the rest of their families because they didn't have enough food to eat either. These families need more money in their pockets, they need better, higher paying jobs, and they need affordable housing. Please continue to make these things a priority when you are making decisions for our communities and our families. Thank you.
What better way to say thank you?
Well done, thank you for that. Council, any questions for our guests? Deputy Mayor, please.
As a member of the Simcoe Muskoka Health Board, thank you very much for coming forward this evening. It's very powerful, and I may tell the public that the Simcoe Muskoka Health Unit was responsible to bring the need for good wages for people to a higher body. And you did mention that there was a pilot project going on in the Kingston area. So we're quite anxious to hear the results of that. Do you have any idea when that is to come forward?
I don't know specifically when the first round of evaluation data is coming forward, although there has been some qualitative data come forward in the form of interviews with some of the local participants. And one lady said that it was just amazing for her to be able to go to the grocery store and buy her own can of peas, to not have to go to a food bank to get a can of peas. And that speaks to the empowerment of individuals. When someone has to go to the food bank on a regular basis and they know that that food isn't even going to last them for the full month, it takes away dignity. And the pilot project, the Basic Income Pilot Project, is looking at a floor, an income floor for every resident of Ontario. Whether you're working or not, it would be an income floor that nobody would have to live under. And it has been piloted previously in Canada as well as in other jurisdictions. And the results in these other places where it has been piloted has demonstrated that kids finish school, adults go on to training or full-time jobs and make good use of that money to better their lives.
Thank you, Christine.
Any other questions or comments? I guess I've got one. When I looked at your advocacy, and I'm quite fine to advocate for that, as everybody knows. I'm pretty familiar with the topic and a pretty strong champion across the province of this topic. But in terms of advocacy, part of the challenge is when people have such restrictive incomes, is that actually unhealthy food is cheap, healthy food is expensive. So do you have a conversation thought on that?
You're absolutely right, and that is a problem. One of the things that we advocate strongly for is local sustainable food systems, so that it does make food more available locally. In terms of the high cost of unhealthy foods, the health unit over the course of many years has done various forms of advocacy to the government, similar to the no smoking advocacy, the tobacco bylaw advocacy, where there has been pressure to remove the tobacco power walls from visibility. In the past, the health unit has done advocacy related to those power walls of unhealthy food sources. So there is a lot of work that we can do in that area as well, absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for your good work. Good to see you again. And our next presentation is actually mentioned in this one is the Economic Development Corporation North Simcoe. And it's Sharon and George and Roy here. because Mayor Marshall has the hook, I'm gonna get started and wait till technology catches up. How's that? So thank you, Mr. Chair, Council, staff, and members of the audience. My name is Roy Ellis, and I'm here with George Cornell, who will also be assisting with this deputation this evening. And also with me is our Economic Development Corporation Director, Sharon, who you know. And I'd like to point out Debbie Zabby, sitting at the table, council table, a very passionate member of our board as well. So thank you, Debbie. The agenda today is focused on 4 things: our scorecard, our Prosperity Summit, and we'll also highlight some key work and accomplishments and conclude with a funding discussion, unfortunately. Scorecard, if you look at our scorecard about halfway down, you'll notice a line called Execute Investment Attraction Plan, and you'll see some deliverables regarding agriculture there. There's 3 deliverables. Very quickly on agriculture, we put our first shovel in the ground, so to speak, last year with the Farm Fresh Food Fest, FFF event, which talks about local food, etc. There seems to be a thread that's weaving through everything tonight here. I think it's jobs, 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 and more jobs, and quality jobs, obviously. So we started that last year, and Councilor Cindy Hastings co-chaired that with a gentleman named Paul Maurice, who's also our EDC board member. FFF is a festival of sorts designed to celebrate agriculture and capture some valuable data. This year we have 2 summer students, Emma and Taylor, and they're developing an agricultural community profile, which really, to get to the bottom line, is surveying those folks in that industry and putting together a marketing brochure, for lack of a better term, highlighting the significant assets that we have on the agricultural front. So all of this effort is foundational to producing that document. I think you've all seen the manufacturing brochure that we put together. A little higher up on the same bullet, you'll see 3 key tactics: lead generation, contacting businesses for investment, and leverage relationships with brokers, which also represents a large part of EDCNS's work plan. Simply stated, this strategy in supporting tactics is about bringing new business to North Simcoe. You will know the one in Q3 2017, and that represents Straight Manufacturing, and you know they acquired Pillsbury. One in Q2 this year representing Oz Investments right here in Penetangwisham, CCF. While no one entity can take full credit, and I'd like to say this out loud, for new businesses replacing Pillsbury and CCF, it is indeed a sunny day when both buildings are producing goods and services and employing people all around a big win for North Simcoe. There's no better forum to attract business than our recent summit last Friday, which I know many of you attended, and also our friends from Champlain Farm were there. Not on the panel of healthcare, but they were seated somewhere in the audience. The 2 sectors of the goal was to merge and demonstrate the convergence, if you wish, of healthcare with advanced manufacturing, a sort of union of sorts coming together. These 2 sectors represent 20,000 jobs, 7,000 jobs in North Simcoe and growing, which represents 30% of our workforce. This slide features a jam-packed agenda. I don't want to repeat for those people who were there, but we had an amazing keynote speaker, Jeremy Laurent, formerly CEO, founder of Venture capitalist, very brilliant man. We've talked to him just recently this week in terms of how to scale one of our key innovations, which I'll mention. Matthew Wilson from CME, Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters, is no stranger to our roundtable group, and he talked a bit about manufacturing trends and NAFTA, of course. Along with leaders, these 2 speakers, we had 10 leaders of the community in healthcare and advanced manufacturing, GBGH and Waypoint, and David Shaw, that was there on the panel talking about their businesses. Two things I want to highlight is just an innovation. We don't think of healthcare innovation in this community, but Frankie Kindred, they actually innovated around a MediFlow sink designed to eliminate harmful bacteria by up to 99%, which is a major problem in our medical institutions or hospitals. In fact, every 157 seconds, somebody gets infected in our hospital. Okay? Mark Canick and his team at Ambient Activity Technologies, they designed the other exciting healthcare innovation. Mark's company, known for manufacturing children's play furniture, actually branched out into a new area and created an innovative tool known as Abby, a product designed to improve the quality of life for those living with dementia. So this year's summit was truly a fun thing. The survey just went out today. For those of you who attended, if it would take 3 to 5 minutes, that would be great to fill out the survey. For those of you whose busy lives kept you away, not to worry, we're going to have a 6-minute cold version video, and we'll also have the whole event broadcast by modules on Rogers 50 times, and we're going to have it available to you. We'll just force ship it to you in about 3 weeks' time. Slide 5, this is where the rubber hits the road, so to speak, jobs and growth. You can see that North Simcoe is 2.3% plus, which was 3.1% increase from 2014 to 16, which really translates to about 100 new manufacturing jobs. And the payroll of the company's 100 jobs is about 6.3 million. And you also induce another 33 jobs. So out of that 100, you net out about 133. So we're real proud of that growth in our manufacturing sector. With respect to skilled trades, you may know we have a strategy. One is to work with county and others to develop the talent. And then we have another strategy, quite frankly, to steal talent. Okay, while we're trying to figure out how to best develop it, we're going to go steal it from North Bay and some of the other places where maybe they're not having as much success as us. So I can't tell you with absolute certainty how many people we've borrowed, if I can use that term, but suffice to say, all the manufacturers are going to write a check for version 3.0 in the fall, and that is proof of the pudding that something good is happening on that front. Slide 8, very quickly on North Simcoe Tourism. This is why it's tough to do this in 10 minutes, because we have all these pillars of activity, but North Simcoe Tourism, we fund through contributions that you give us. And our sister organization, 3 highlights here. The Discovery Guide, which I think is a real cracker. The operators like it, the guests like it. On the bottom right is a new beacon, a tent, if you wish, that was on display at the Butter Tart Festival. Effectively, we were surveying customers, postal codes, where they're from, how much they spend, those types of things. But more importantly, we were actually marketing our 276 tourism and cultural assets in the area. Something I'm real proud of. I went on that board in January and I said, look, we need a few people. We need someone from the marina sector, the accommodation sector, and the third sector is restaurant. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you. I should know that. In summary, we have a diverse, we've now hired 3 board members there, and we have a diverse and very talented board, and ready, set, go. We're ready. The next slide summarizes the financial picture, and then I'll do a quick brief introduction to this slide, and then I'll ask Mayor Cornell to come and join me. But based on the current commitment from municipalities of 0.5, we're in a slight predicament. As you know, county, under the leadership of Mayor Marshall, basically, and the other 3 mayors, lobbied to get this funding, and it started with $200,000 from the county, you may recall, 4 years ago, and the municipality kicked in $4,000, I think was the number. And now the idea was to wean us off of that county funding and then have the municipality step up. Obviously, you stepped up in 2017, as did the other 3 municipalities, to the tune of 0.5% of the tax levy. And what happened last year, though, because of this sort of leaning off, we were down about 45,000 plus or minus, and then this year it's the last gift, so to speak, from county, so we're going to be down another 50. What that meant was we had to give North Simcoe Tourism a haircut in 2018. Our board decided, a very tough decision, but we dropped their funding from 120 down to 80. So we want to we got to keep the doors open before we can leverage our 207 money and other monies that are out there. So we've looked at the municipal accommodation tax, which is in fact very just introduced, and you may know, 10 days ago, where they put a tax on accommodations, hotel rooms, Airbnb, perhaps marinas, what have you. And the boards, both boards, recommend we don't do that at this time. What we'd like to do is sort of push that down to staff in all 4 municipalities, because we believe if one municipality makes a decision without the other 3, then this model, and I think it's a great model, the 4 of you coming together, will start to unravel a bit, because 90% of the accommodations happen to be in Midland. So it's an easy decision for Tiny to say, hey, let's do this tax. And so we'd like to get all 4 staff together, not us, but with your direction, and then have a recommendation, say, for April of next year for the new council to make a decision on. And then at that point, I think this is a good time to bring up Mr. George Cornell to tie a ribbon around this. So thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Good evening, Mayor Marshall, members of council. think Roy took a little liberty this evening and went a little further than he normally does. But I'm here to make the ask, if you will. But I want to just go back and highlight some of the points that Roy made in terms of the manufacturers roundtables, the success that we've had there, our skilled trades initiatives, our North Simcoe tourism. Weber Manufacturing received over $800,000 grant from the province, and our 2 prosperity summits. So we've, in 4 years, when we think about it, and I know a lot of you around this table have given this a lot of thought, this didn't happen overnight. We all made an investment of this, we've been working hard at it, and I think now you're starting to see the results. 133 jobs that we were able to fill in this community. Our next program is about another 100 skilled trades jobs. So these aren't just your average jobs. These are skilled trades jobs. They tie in with what we talked about in terms of food insecurity, in terms of high-paying jobs. So there is a fit there for economic development. Yeah, I was just sitting there listening to the gap analysis. That's another big piece of economic development in North Simcoe, the ability for connectivity and that speed of that connectivity. So it's been an exciting time, and I think you're starting to see the payback and the results and the value of our investments respectively. So our asks tonight are twofold. The first Roy touched on was the MAP, the Municipal Accommodation Tax. So we're not looking to implement that in 2018. What we're asking is on behalf of the Heart of Georgian Bay, the tourism pillar, and EDCNS, that the 4 municipalities put a little team together, probably the CAOs to get the ball started, have a look at what that tax is, have a look at how it's working in other municipalities, what would be the implications with here in North Simcoe, and how best to proceed, come forward when new councils are in place in the spring or early 2019, and let's have a chat about that and see if it makes sense for us going forward. The second ask, as you can see from a funding point of view, and this perhaps is an ask to help us bridge for the next year or so until we figure out the MAP tax, and we figure out a couple of things in terms of funding with regards to the tourism pillar, the Heart of Georgian Bay. And that would be for you to consider increasing that 0.5% that you've already approved and moving that to 0.75% in 2019. So the ask is at this point just to put that as a place card holder in your 2019 budget discussions in preparation, as I say, as a bridging transition point for us over the next year, i.e. 2019, to help with the funding of EDCNS and the tour pillar. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Roy.
I'm certainly prepared to take any questions.
Do you have any questions for the guests? Councillor Saunders, please.
I don't have a question as much as a few comments. And back about approximately 5 years ago, we had a presentation on economic development. And at the time, I can recall that the economic development in the county tended to be, we're going to do a study. We're going to do more research. We're going to do more study. And in answer to the question, how many jobs have been created as a result of these studies? The answer was, I don't know. That left me with a very bad taste in my mouth at the time, and with a very, very negative attitude towards economic development. Now, I'm very, very happy to say that in the past 5 years, I have seen immense growth under the leadership of Roy Ellis and George Cornell and Sharon Bay. I am extremely impressed with what I see going on. Now, you've taken me from being a non-believer to a believer. I happened to attend, along with a couple of my colleagues at this table, the workshop and conference last week. And I wasn't quite sure what I would see or what I would hear. And I heard a number of presentations from people in the healthcare industry, and they were excellent presentations. But I also heard presentations from 5 different people in the manufacturing sector in North Simcoe. And I was not just impressed, I was overwhelmed. I had no idea that in our communities in North Simcoe we had people of this quality doing this kind of cutting-edge work worldwide in terms of their markets. I walked away from that, not to be maudlin here, but with a huge sense of pride in terms of what we are able to do in North Simcoe. And so, in terms of whatever it is you're asking, I don't know what 0.75% translates into in terms of money, but all I can tell you is that I see the money that is currently being spent very, very wisely, very, very well, And I'm tremendously proud of you two gentlemen and Sharon for the kind of leadership that you're providing in this area. So congratulations.
And just a couple of comments. Thank you very much, Councillor Saunders, for the comments. The dollars are right now at 0.5%. You guys are roughly 50,000, so it'll be another $25,000 to get you to 3/4. I just want to comment. I performed the same role in front of the Council of Midland on Monday night, and one of the councillors there had some similar comments, and Mayor Marshall will appreciate this. 2 years ago at the Prosperity Summit, on the stage were the 4 mayors. And all we kind of heard was, well, if the municipalities did this, if we could do this, if we could do that, we might be able to get somewhere. This past Friday, as you just said, we had 10 employers from this community telling some phenomenal stories about their businesses, their products, and their international exposure. And to your point, I mean, that's a big part of what EDCNS is trying to do too, is get those stories out there. Because I would agree that as a community, we have somewhat, I shouldn't say no idea, but we have limited idea in terms of what's going on behind some of those doors, and it is phenomenal. And we have that ability, and we have that quality of people to help drive this with us. So thanks for those comments.
Just a quick follow-up. I would encourage the people who are watching at home on Rogers and on streaming to tune in when it is that you put your seminar on television, because I would like to hope that it's important that this message get out to people in our community. There are times, because we're such a close-knit little community, that we maybe don't recognize the excellence that we're surrounded with and that we have in our own community. So I hope that people at home will watch and tune in and see what we saw live, and I think you'll be equally impressed.
Thank you for that, So thank you, Roy, George, Sharon, and Debbie for your good work on this. I know it's a lot of work that I do, a lot of pressure points and a lot of hurdles to overcome. In terms of the skilled trades, and I'm making a public announcement here, in terms of the skilled trades, the importance of us shopping, and getting skilled trades in here is incredibly important work by the EDCNS, and probably doesn't get the recognition it should. The importance of that is we have our businesses today turning down work because they don't have the workforce in place together. So rather than bid an opportunity, they don't bid because the fear of bidding and not being able to deliver will damage their company and their future. So they actually are not. So in terms of skilled trades, we need to continue on with that. I think the municipalities, the manufacturers think you have 11 of them advertising together, to create that volume opportunity. It was great. Kevin Simple with our skilled trades expos, but that's really neat in your play if you think about it. We talk to kids in grade 7 and 8 to introduce them to the trades. They don't graduate for 4 years, and if they become apprentices, it's 4 years after that before they hit us. So it's an 8-year window. So we need to be creative up there. So I'm glad you're working. I certainly hope that council sees its way to introduce that budget with 0.75%. Well done. And then that one we'll certainly take under consideration. I think from the map perspective, we can watch the city of Barrie and learn. We can watch Niagara Falls. They tell me that the magic in that is actually the collection of the funds. So you need to be able to get that money from those who collect it. That is the Achilles heel, I guess, if you will, that we need to figure through, but I trust that you will do that well.
Mayor Marshall, very quickly, thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Mr. Saunders. We've had several discussions over the years, as you know, and talked about the need for a voice in the economic development area. I'd just like to thank again the county. I didn't say this enough. Collaboration with the educators. We had high school principals there at the meeting on Friday. We had Georgian College there. We had county there, the economic development people. We had manufacturers. We had Champlain. We had the BIA there. We had the Builders Association. It was probably the most inclusive event we've had in decades. So thank you again for your great comments, and we will continue to charge this up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up for us is Don Martin, an update from our Curling Club. Welcome, Don.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm Don Morton, member of the board of the Penitentiary Curling Club. And this is an information session to let you know health and state affairs at the club. I'm going to start by a bit of history. A number of you may know the history, but very quickly, the existing building was built in 1972 under the direction of Ozzie Cinnamon. Except for the steel frame itself, the entire building was built with volunteer labor. And shortly after its construction, the title was turned over to the town of Penetanguishene. It was at that time being built on the town's property. In 2002, with funds from the Ontario Trade Fund, the town of Penetanguishene, the township of Tiny, and the curling club itself, it was expanded to include accessible washrooms and office space and a meeting room on the lower level. A couple of years after that, there were cost overruns on that construction, due largely to the foundation conditions we encountered. Those cost overruns were covered by the curling club itself. However, we were required to come to the town and ask for a loan at that time. And at that time, we did get a loan from the town for about $120,000, as I recall, to be amortized over a 15-year period. It now has about 1 year left to be paid off. Just to review the lease agreement, you probably are more aware of the lease agreement than I am, but it was signed last year for a 10-year term, makes provision for an extension for a second 10-year term. The curling club has, as you know, exclusive use and occupancy of the building from the middle of September to the end of May. And from the end of May through to the 14th of September, it provides for joint use by both the town and the curling club. The responsibilities under the lease, very briefly, are that the curling club pays for all operational costs related to the building proper. The town pays for all operational costs related to the outside grounds and the maintenance of the exterior structure. The curling club is required under the agreement to provide 63 days of use and occupancy by the town during the summer months, plus 120 hours of annual community access to the building. Essentially, that's the agreement that we have between the club and the town. Looking from last September to this coming September, we have scheduled 32 rentals of both ice and the room upstairs. We have 389 hours of community usage scheduled. On Tuesdays afternoons, we have school curling, which is under the direction of Jenny French from Burkeville. We have curling leagues for the members from Monday through to Friday evening. Monday, Wednesday afternoon curling, Friday interclub curling, which involves Midland and Penetang. And Monday afternoon, we have a junior league. We have a number of lawn spiels each year. The couple of the biggest lawn spiels, I guess, are Knights of Columbus and Pea Soup and Pigtail. And we annually, almost annually, have OCA play down of one sort or another. The highlight was 2 or 3 years ago when we had a provincial championship for the ladies curling. A bit about our financials. Last year, our revenue was $231,000. Our expenses were $222,000 for approximately $9,000 on the right side of our ledger. Just capitalize our loan again was about $120,000 with the town for 15 years, and we have about $15,000 outstanding, which would be probably paid off in the next year. We're a volunteer-based organization. We have one employee, the ice maker, plus part-time custodial services and part-time bartending. A word about our future capital needs. Our ice plant was built into the original building in 1972-73. So it's a piece of really old equipment except for, well, 3 or 4 pieces of equipment that we've replaced in the last 4 or 5 years. Basically, the ice plant needs to be replaced, or we're going to be facing virtually, there have been times when we don't have ice out there. We looked a year ago at replacing the entire plant. That's about a $200,000 expenditure. Between then and today, we got a lot smarter, and we said, "What? We don't need to replace the entire plant. We need to replace those parts of the plant that date back to the beginning of time." We've reviewed that, and we've got a quote, and now we're looking at about $100,000 in future capital requirements to replace those parts of our plant that we need to replace definitely sooner rather than later. In order to fund that, we got in the slide, right? We are going to apply this summer for a grant from the Trillium Fund. That application is required to be in by the middle of August. We will find out late in the year, probably November, December, whether we're successful. We're going to apply for funding to complete all of those those repair works, the replacement works that we need for the plant. In the meantime, we continue to repair. And if we don't get funding from the OTF, you'll probably hear us back again with a really big ask. I think that's all I really have. I think I got through my 10 minutes in record time. And if you have any questions, please ask.
Well, thank you, Don. Any questions for Don? Thank you for your presentation. Don, I've seen many clubs in a similar situation where it's a big ticket to replace it all, and then decide to do the piecemeal to save cost, and then it ends up not working out well on the other side. So you might want to just take a second look. I've just seen this before where we changed the ice plant in a different curling club or ice facility. We changed the components, so the big ticket item scares us, so we back off. But then at the end of the day, the new items go in, and the one we left alone goes in the ditch, and we're back to maybe worse off than we start. So just a word of caution. I guess my message is you're going for a grant, go big.
Yes. Okay. Well, yes. OTF actually told us that too.
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay. Good stuff. Okay. Thank you so much. Great. Okay, moving on to item number 7, which is adoption of minutes not already confirmed. Minutes moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Saunders, that the following council minutes be confirmed and adopted as circulated. And that's the minutes of June 13, 2018, and the minutes of June 13, Committee of the Whole, June 13, 2018 as well. Any errors, comments, omissions? I need a second for my motion. Guess my second is not the room. Thank you, Councillor Rossin. Any comments on those minutes? Seeing none, I'll call for vote. All in favor? And that is carried and approved. Going on to next item in front of us is consent agenda items. We have 2. We have the 2019 budget survey summaries and correspondence from DeVry, Smith, and Frankie LP. Does anyone wish to pull any of these items for discussion? Councillor Liddy.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'd like to cite the correspondence from Gregory Smith.
Sorry, we just voted the other one. But I'll get back to you. Does anybody wish to pull the other? So we'll take the budget survey summaries for information. All in favor of that? Thank you very much. Did I need a mover and seconder for that, Stacey? Sorry. I think you did. I don't have one in front of us, but I think procedure. I have a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Rossin. from that, Councillor Water. Thank you very much. And then we'll go on to Councillor Levy, item number B, the letter from the lawyer. So please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask through you, Mr. Mayor, that our Director of Planning give us an update on this letter and any further correspondence she's had since she's received this.
Thank you very much. Either Jeff or Andy want to start? Andrew, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I just wanted to provide an update to Council with respect to an additional piece of correspondence that was received late today. So we will circulate that and provide that to Council with respect to our official plan. To summarize, basically, there was a request for an additional modification to the official plan that we are investigating and looking into. It's not a major request, and I don't feel it should hold up the adoption of the official plan later in today's council meeting. So I will follow up in September at our next COW meeting with a report responding to the letter of correspondence that we received late today. I just wanted to make sure that council was aware we did receive something. It does deal with the creation of a new residential lot on a private road. It's not a significant change to the municipality's policies, but it is something very specific tied to property in town.
Councillor Levy, you're satisfied with that?
I certainly am. Thank you.
So can I get you to move to receive for information? Seconder for that, please. Deputy Mayor, all in favor of receiving that for information? That is carried. Thank you very much. Going on to item number 9, matters for consideration. And we have 9A moved by Councillor LaRue, seconded by Councillor Mayotte, that the town proceed with option blank as outlined in staff report. So Councillor LaRue, do you want to speak to this or have staff?
I will refer to our Director of Recreation.
Thank you through you, Councillor LaRue. So the Midland Tours has a 5-year agreement with the town that is set to expire in 2019. They have operated the Serendipity Princess from the town wharf, and they have this season and next season outstanding, and there's in the agreement there is no exit clause for Midland Tours. However, they have sold the Serendipity Princess, and they have requested that the town mutually release them from the agreement without penalty or payment. So the report is obviously some options for council's consideration and review, and I'm happy to explain or expand any of them that you did discuss.
If you could maybe just walk us just quickly through the options in front of council, so everybody's aware.
Sure. So the first option is to grant the request, and the outstanding value of the rental, so the season would be $4,600 in revenue, and next season would be $4,800. So council would release them from the agreement. Potentially, we could rent some of that space. It is getting late in the season. We do have a couple of boaters on the wait list. So we could reach out to them, and we do anticipate that we would recover some of those costs. We believe that 2019 we would recover all the costs because people haven't secured their voting for next season. The second option is to split the difference, and that would be to release them from next year only because we do have that warning, but hold them accountable to this season. The third option is to deny the request. Now, we did not seek any legal opinion on this matter yet from our solicitor. Wanted to get some council direction before potentially incurring any unnecessary legal costs.
Thank you very much. So, council, member council wish to put one of those options in front of us for consideration. Councillor LaRue, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would go with the option that we release them from their responsibilities. I think that family has done a lot of good in this municipality over the years, been employers over and over in many capacities, and I think that we don't have a great difficulty in recouping those losses between now and next year. So I would move that we do away with it.
So that would be option 1. Is there a seconder for that option? Councillor Mayotte. Conversation on the option in front of us. Seeing none, I'll call for vote. All in favor of that option? Opposed, if any? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 9B, moved by Councillor Rawson, second by Councillor LaRose, that the Philip H. Jones Pollution Control Plant debenture be issued on July 16, 2018, as per the terms outlined in this report, and that the necessary bylaw be brought forward for council approval. Councillor Rawson, did you wish to speak to this or have staff? Carrie, did you wish to speak to this or
Unless council has any specific questions, I think everybody is fully aware that it's time to debenture our construction financing after we've just done our final construction draw earlier this year. And Infrastructure Ontario has set the terms and provided us with the debenture bylaw to follow later on in the agenda.
Thank you very much. See no hands up for further questions or comments. All in favor of that, please. And that is carried. Agenda item 9C, moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that the Director of Finance/Treasurer be directed to make application to the Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation, OLIC, for debentures in the amount of $3,799,622 to be amortized over 30 years to fund our Main Street reconstruction project. Excuse me, and that the clerk be directed to bring forward the necessary bylaw for council approval when OLIC debenture is approved and repayment arrangements have been finalized. Any comments or questions on this particular item? Stacey, please.
Your Worship, there's just been a notice that there's a portion of this motion that we would want to just retract. It's the second part of the motion where it says that the clerk be directed to bring forward the necessary bylaw for council approval is fine, but the portion when the OILC debenture is approved and repayment arrangements have been finalized, been requested to remove that section.
Delete that? Okay, fine for that. Okay, council, any questions on this particular item in front of us? See none, I'll call for vote. All in favor? Opposed, if any, and that is carried. Going on to agenda item 9D, moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Saunders, that the staff recommendations to proceed with option 2 is approved by council. Change pages. So this is on our council computers report. Somebody want to speak to this a little vague for our for the audience, that's for sure. Carrie, do you want to speak to that? I think the recommendation is a little ambiguous.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, so for the upcoming new council term 2018 to 2022, what the purpose of this report is to bring forward some options in terms of the process that we undertake to purchase and provide councillors with laptops. We do purchase 7, considering the mayor and the deputy mayor are provided through the county with their computers. But what we wanted to do this year for the upcoming new council was to bring forward some options that were a little bit more flexible than status quo. And status quo typically has been that we purchase a appropriate laptop with the specifications required to get your email and review your online agendas. We set them up with our security and our monitoring, and we hand them out. That would be option 1, remaining status quo. They would be purchased and owned by the town, and at the end of your 4-year term, you return them back to the town. Option 2, which we are recommending, is pretty well the same as option 1. We would still purchase them and own them, and they would be secured and monitored with all of the antivirus and malware software that we're currently implementing. We would change the current process and provide 4 samples for councillors to choose from, and they would meet all the specifications that we do require, but they would range in size, screen size, and from a normal laptop that you're probably using right now, right down to a tablet. They would still be purchased and owned by the town. The newly elected council members would just get the option of which one would suit them a little bit better. Option 3 would be to give a one-time internet technology allowance of $2,000 to basically go out and purchase your own. You would own it. There would be some malware software or antivirus required to be installed on it. And that's the third and final option. It would be owned and kept by council members at the end of their 4-year term. There just is some more complicated issues in terms of the diversity of devices being used, and the town would have no support or management over those computers. So it may compromise, there may be some network security issues that might come up, which is why we're recommending option 2.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions for Carrie on those particular items? So now I'll call for vote on the motion for items. All in favor? And that's carried. Moved on to agenda item 9E. It's moved by Councillor Levy, second by Councillor Lauder, that an exemption from the refreshment vehicle bylaw 2004-101 be approved for G. Cox for the year of 2018 to 2020 summer season, from June 27, 2018 to October 15, 2020, be approved to operate a non-motorized refreshment vehicle in the town in the following town parks and municipal roads. One, throughout the community on local roadways, not on Main Street or within 200 meters of a business selling similar products. Rotary Champlain Wendat Park, Huronia Park, Tom Coffin Park, Phil Marshalldown Park, Gendron Park, and McGuire Park. So pretty straightforward. Council, any questions on this particular matter for staff? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Moving on to agenda item 9F. It's moved by Councillor LaRue, second by Councillor Mayat, that the Council of the Town of Penetanguishene appoint Christine Johnson of the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit to the Seniors Advisory Committee for the remainder of the 2014-2018 council term. All in favor of that motion? That is carried. 9G, moved by Councillor Levy, second by Councillor Lauder, that a zoning bylaw amendment to remove the holding H symbol for the property municipally known as 73 Polish Avenue be approved. And we had a presentation from the planner on this earlier in the evening. Final comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That is carried. 9J, moved by Councillor Ross and seconded by Councillor Rose, that the initial acceptance of the base asphalt at first stage curb within phase 2 of the Harbor Point subdivision be approved, subject to the Director of Public Works condition outlined in this report. Brian, did you want to give a quick 101 on this, please? Brian, can you give a quick 101 on the base asphalt, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. The report in front of council is for the council to approve the initial acceptance of the base asphalt and first stage curb that was placed last year within phase 2 of the Harbor Point subdivision. And as per our subdivision agreement for phase 2, a council resolution is required for the initial acceptance and start of the warranty period for these infrastructure works. And the developer has requested these works be initially accepted. I have reviewed the associated information, and other than added a stipulation in the staff report to have the surface course asphalt placed this fall prior to the start of the new winter season. And if that condition is met, we're recommending the reduction of the securities.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions for Brian? Stacey, did you have a comment? You're good? Okay. Right, all in favor of this motion? That is carried.
Your Worship? Sorry to go back. We just noticed that there are 2 zoning bylaw amendments removing of the H. There's a 73 and a 77, and we think you may have only had the one.
I've got the other one right here in front of me.
Okay, perfect.
Somebody might have shuffled the papers incorrectly, but we'll go to that one. 9H, moved by Councillor Lauder, second by Councillor Levy, that a zoning bylaw amendment to remove the holding H symbol for the property municipally known as 77 Polish Avenue be approved. And we talked about this earlier in the evening as well. All in favor of that motion? Well, that is carried. Moving on to 9J, moved by Councillor Levy, second by Councillor Lauder, that site plan approval be granted to the revised plans dated May 23, 2018 for the property at 122 Main Street, which is application SPA-04-17 for the development of approximate 1,000 square meter retail trade establishment, i.e. Shoppers Drug Mart. Andy, do you want to give us a quick flyby on this one, please?
Sure. Thank you very much, Your Worship. So we did receive correspondence back from the developer of the new Shoppers Drug Mart at the property at 122 Main Street. If you recall, council did grant site plan approval to that development back in March. Since that time, they've gone through their tender and they've hit a couple of snags in their budgeting process, and I think my staff report alludes to the fact that one of them has come up as a result of the new tariffs on steel and aluminum that has substantially increased the cost of the construction of such building. So as a result, they tried to trim back some of their costs and made some minor changes to the approved site plan. So I wanted to make sure council was aware of those minor changes. They are outlined in the staff report, but a quick highlight is they're lowering the building 3 feet in height. Instead of the red brick on all 4 sides of the building, they're proposing new EIFS panels that will look like red brick on the 2 street frontages, as well as red colored EIFS panels on the back, the west and the northern building frontages. Some changes to the parking area in terms of where asphalt is, where a barrier curb is, and so forth. So just want to make sure council was aware of those revisions and grant site plan approval to the revised drawings.
Thank you very much for that explanation. Council, any comments for the director? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Then all in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to agenda item number 10, which is presentation and consideration of reports from our last committee of the whole. And the first one in front of us is moved by Councilor LaRue, second by Councilor Miot. The recommendations contained within the committee of the whole report related to recreation community services section be approved. Does anyone wish to pull any of these items? Councilor LaRue, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. 6B4.
Does anyone wish to pull any of the other items? Seeing none, I'll call for vote on the balance. All in favor? That is carried. Councilor LaRue, 6B4, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. 6B4 relates to the hiring of 2 seasonal employees for the arena from September to March. A very bad need, because we have 3 employees there. If one were to get hurt or ill, we're down to 2. It's a liability issue, it's a health and safety issue. So I'm asking the clerk to give us an update on the process of going through this and having it done.
Stacey, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I did have an opportunity to speak to Councillor LaRue about this item, as well as staff has had an opportunity to review more clearly the motion, what happened in terms of the motion to reconsider, and it's my position today to send an apology to council and take full accountability for not being able to directly guide council in what happened during that meeting. Councillor LaRue moved a motion to reconsider. Staff are in full belief that that motion to reconsider was not required. However, beyond that, we also feel that it is, not that we feel, that it is actually part of the procedural bylaw that a motion to reconsider be handled in the same way of a notice of motion, which has to happen in a council meeting. It can happen in a committee of the whole meeting on a vote of 2/3 of council. But in this case, that did not happen. So procedurally, a few things went wrong, and that's on me for not stopping. But we want to make it right. So going forward, we believe as staff that it is not required for a motion to reconsider, and that Councillor LaRue's motion should be considered today by council.
Thank you for that. So the original motion was what, Councillor LaRue? Do you have that in front of you?
I don't have it in front of me.
I do have it here.
Can you read it for us, please, Stacey?
So the recommended action for the RCS additional staffing request was that $16,118 of the $168,761 2018 service delivery review budget is allocated to the arena operating budget for the hiring of 2 temporary part-time facility attendants from approximately September 1st, 2018 to March 31st, 2019, as described under option A, is approved.
So Councillor LaRue, you want to move that?
I am moving that.
We have a second for that motion. Councillor Miot, discussion on the motion in front of us. Councillor Rossin, please.
So I'm a little confused why the notice of reconsideration is not applicable.
Clerk explained to us that it wasn't a motion to reconsider, and the council had moved a little too quickly, and upon her reflection, she's telling us that it was never a motion to reconsider in the first place. Is that what I heard you say here tonight, Stacey?
Thank you, Your Worship. It is the staff's belief that the motion to reconsider was not required, and we can certainly get into the details of why we believe that it was not required, which if that's necessary. But more importantly, the motion to reconsider was not, even if it were required, which again, we don't believe that it was, even if it were, it wasn't appropriate for it to happen in a committee setting.
Okay, so I think, Stacey, can you walk us through why it's not a motion to reconsider in fairness to Councillor Ross? I think that's an appropriate question.
Absolutely. I'll ask our CAO to provide that information, just as a separate point of opinion.
Your Worship, as I tried to articulate, and perhaps I didn't do a great job at it, on June 13th, from my perspective and from staff's perspective, the service delivery review, opportunity number 5, spoke to summer seasonal staff and dealing with our seasonal infrastructure, i.e. our parks, our splash pad, our amphitheater, etc. In addition to that, from staff's perspective, the request for arena staffing, not only due to what the SDR speaks to, but also from staff's perspective, we were looking to have council entertain this aside from the SDR, or irrespective of what council decided on April 4th when they passed a motion approving the roadmap for the SDR. So it's kind of a twofold answer. The first one being the SDR speaks to our summer and seasonal infrastructure and needing additional summer and seasonal help, which is not what we're asking in the arena staffing report. And the second piece being, irrespective of the decision that council made on April 4th with respect to the motion for the roadmap, whether that proceeded or not, it was staff's intention to bring this request forward for additional arena staffing resources.
Councillor Rossen?
I appreciate Jeff's comments about its staff's request, but I can't recall Councillor Saunders moving a motion, which this council passed, that all job or positions will be evaluated by the new council. We evaluated a few at that time. There's a few we're looking at. Some of them were not seasonal. One was a communications officer. Councillor Saunders moved it that this council didn't have the authority to do that, and we wanted to move that off the next council.
I'll look to our clerk to validate that motion that is being referenced, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think the intention of council, actually the specific motion says that finding that items which require council authority be put on hold and presented via proposed revised roadmap in 2019 by the CAO. It was not a specific motion saying that staffing would cease. I believe that we actually also approved some gardening staff recently. Okay. So it definitely was not a specific motion as worded by Councillor Ross.
Councillor Saunders?
Thank you, Your Worship. It seems to me the solution to this is relatively simple. I mean, what we're dealing with, after all, is a recommendation from the committee. It's up to this council to accept or reject that recommendation. And it seems to me that if there is a collective body of thinking around this table that the recommendation from the committee is unacceptable, then we defeat it. And then we're back to square one, which is what I think Councilor LaRue would like to see.
So I think we got two. I don't disagree with Councillor Saunders. So we got two options. I can rule that the motion on the table by Councillor LaRue and Councillor Mayotte is back in line and we don't need to reconsider. That would allow Councillor Rossen to challenge my ruling, and if the majority of council said, no, Mr. Mayor, you're wrong, then we would move forward. If the majority of council said, yes, Mr. Mayor, we agree that it wasn't a reconsideration, then Councillor LaRue Mayotte's motion could go forward. Councillor Saunders' recommendation is to defeat the motion that we passed. Which one is the cleanest for council to move forward on? I'm good with either or. I just want to make sure we all understand how we get either defeat this or move forward.
Thank you, Worship. Well, when we pull an item from a committee, it's setting the reset button essentially. When a member of council pulls an item from a committee, that motion is essentially brought back onto the table for council consideration. It can be amended, it can be changed, and it can be moved, seconded, and carried and passed. So I don't. In terms of defeating it, it would be that if Councillor LaRue and Councillor Mayotte move this motion and council defeats it tonight, then that would close the door on that ask.
Okay, so I'll debate the motion live on the floor then. Any comments for or against the motion that's here? Okay. Sorry, Councillor LaRue and Watercliff. Okay, all in favor of the motion as presented by Councillor Leroux and Mayotte? Those opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're moving on to, nope, we're good for that one. So Stacy will have to print a motion for me to sign and approve, please. Move on to 10A, moved by Councillor Levy, seconded by Councillor Lauder, that the recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole report related to Planning and Development Services section be approved. Stacy, we do need to remove the item that Councillor Rawson has declared premier. Do you have that particular item? 7B4. Okay, Council, anyone wish to pull any of the remaining items? None. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Those are carried. And I'll need a mover and seconder to approve 7B4, please. Councillor Saunders, Councillor Leroux. Any comments or questions on 7B4? Okay, all in favor of that motion? And that is carried, and let the records reflect that Councillor Rawson did not participate. Moving on to item 10A, moved by Councillor Leroux, second by Councillor Rawson, that the recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole report related to the Transportation and Environmental Services section be approved. Anyone wish to pull any of these? Deputy Mayor, please.
B2, please.
Sorry?
B2.
B2, thank you very much. Does anyone wish to pull any of the other items? See none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Okay, Deputy Mayor, on item B2, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would ask Council to reconsider option 1 and support option 2, using a portion of this money for public art for our reconstructed Main Street. The new construction presents an opportunity to have public art in different locations on our Main Street. With the establishment of an ad hoc committee, it would allow us to investigate funding and sponsorship. It would engage the public and artisans in our community. I ask Council to support option 2 with the $20,000 to be set aside for this exciting project. Our community is well versed in history, and I think our new constructed Main Street will give us an opportunity to do something great with it, and engaging the public, I think, is the way to go. So I would ask Council to reconsider the option 1 that was brought forward, was that the entire $43,000 go into debt reduction. I'm asking that this be reconsidered and that $20,000 of that be set aside.
Put a motion on the floor?
Yes, I'd like to put a motion on the floor.
Is there a seconder for the motion that's Deputy Mayor has it? Councillor Lauder? Comments on the motion in front of us?
Respectfully, I would suggest the motion on the floor is out of order. There's a motion that has come forward from committee, and before a motion can go on the floor, that motion has to be dealt with, one way or another.
No, the motion on the floor coming to us is a recommendation from committee that council can choose to ignore. And I'll look for the clerk to give me some backup. If I'm incorrect, please tell me. If I am correct, please inform us of that as well.
Historically, procedurally, we've done that where someone has brought forward an item, they want to amend it at that time. That's the opportunity to do so. If it's defeated, we go back to the original motion and it's voted on again, and it either carries or is defeated as well.
Thank you for that clarification. So we do have a motion on the floor. Comments on that motion?
Which motion? The one coming forward from committee?
No, the one by the Deputy Mayor. I'm ruling that the motion in play is in play. Councillor Leroux.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to remind Council that this project is many millions of dollars over budget. The rate they're going and the rate that they're going to finish is going to cost us any extra. So I again will be voting no for this and voting in favor of putting that money towards our debt.
Thank you very much. Other comments? Councillor Lauder, please.
I hear you, Councillor Rose, but at the same time, I do look at the documentation that was presented, and the streetscaping that was presented was to have public art available and make the public, the final Main Street presentation something that is amiable and lovable to the town. What Deputy Mayor has brought forth is that the public art, we actually engage a possible ad hoc committee and approach our public and allow them, our our cultural diversity, the diversified public that we have, allow them to come forward and contribute in designing public art. And once again, we can approach our manufacturers within the town in order to get them involved and have everyone participate and together produce something that is self-initiated, represents the town, and is part of the streetscaping that was originally planned. So really, it's just a matter of here we have some money that's come in, and yes, we can designate it in a very, very appreciable format, as originally defined by our Main Street presentations.
Comments? Any other comments on that? Councilor LaRue, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I kind of changed my mind on this thing because last weekend I was in the city of Orillia, and the fact that they have a thriving downtown, and I note that they have art structures such as boats, maple leaves, Muskoka chairs, guitars, all along their main street, which is an attraction to people. And, you know, we have to look at, after the Main Street construction here, it's imperative that we support and encourage new business in our downtown core. In the past 2 years, we've had 9 businesses closing. Our focus should be here, not elsewhere. We need to rebuild our town core to attract new businesses. A common theme, such as the nautical theme, would be a great thing to be seen on our main street. So I think $20,000 out of a $43,000, what's the big deal?
Councilor Russell, please.
I wasn't going to talk, but I have to. So we got a $43,000 gift. The deputy mayor wants to put murals and paintings and art on the main street. Councilor Lauder feels it's great, and Councilor LaRue thinks, so what's the big deal? Here's the big deal. We had a presentation tonight about food insecurity. We hear about people can't afford to live today. We hear about it hard for jobs. Our job is to have good roads, safe water, and keep our taxes low as possible. Not worry about art. That's our priority today. That wasn't in our scope. If you want to do that, domain took west. Let's fix the road, let's do it as on task, and let's keep the costs as low as we can.
Thank you very much. Any other comments on this one? So, Stacey, sir, please.
If you're calling for the vote, I just want to get clarity in terms of the motion.
Yep. We will, sure. Sorry, you were often recorded too. That's true, that's fine. So I guess I'll follow up on this. I think our responsibility to our citizens far beyond just keeping the roads and taxes down. We're actually, you have a town that we're supposed to be vibrant, engaging, invest in, and make people proud to be part of. And I don't disagree with Councilor LaRue when I go to really look at the prettiness of that downtown core and the attractions of the hub. I go to Collingwood and I see street art out there, and I see pianos on the street, and I see creativity, a vibrant downtown core. And let's face it, you know, without a vibrant downtown core, if you got a rotten apple core, you've got a rotten apple. Our core is the heartbeat of our town, and we need to invest in that. So I'm certainly supportive of it, and I think we're blessed with a grant that's coming in for $43,000 that we're not burdening the taxpayer with, and so I'm fully supportive of the motion as well. Stacey, there's been call for a recorded vote, so it's moved by the deputy mayor, seconded by Councilor Lauder, that option number 2 be approved. And I just double check to make sure it's option number 2, but I think that's the option.
And I understood that it was option 2. Option 2 just simply says a commissioning of a sculpture or artwork, and I believe there were comments related to it being only an amount of $20,000, as well as something about an ad hoc committee. And do we want that to be as part of the motion, or are we just trying?
So I think we should make part of the motion. So I think it was a total of $43,000. Thank you for that. The deputy mayor is asking $20,000 of that 43 be identified for this art cultural aspect, and that an ad hoc committee be struck to help create the opportunity. The deputy mayor, does that sound?
Yes.
Councilor Lauder is the seconder, does that sound? So Stacey, if you want to craft that, I'll give you a second.
Okay, just so I don't know if I missed this, but the remainder of the $43,000 to be
to debt.
And in terms of the ad hoc committee, is that an ad hoc committee of council, an ad hoc committee of the public? Just a little clarity.
An ad hoc committee of residents of our community and council members, if that's what develops. I did think that the downtown improvement committee could handle this, but there really isn't a full scope of downtown improvement committee. So I think we have to look and advertise the fact to get membership and artisans of our community to come forward.
So Stacy, maybe if we can just pass the motion with the 23,000 on the debt, 20,000 going to the arts, and the staff report back on the committee structure, and then we can move forward with the art. So we can get back to us. Council can't design that committee on the fly, so I think let's just put in there that staff get back to council as to committee structure options. Council, mover and seconder, okay with that kind of adjustment? Okay, so recorded vote, and we'll start with Councillor Ross, and as he called it, and we'll give Stacy a second to set up that.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just to clarify for the motion, that option 2 be selected to commission an installation of sculpture or artwork within the Main Street in the amount of $20,000, with the remainder to be attributed to the Main Street debt incurred, and that staff be directed to return to council with ad hoc committee structure options. Thank you. Councillor Rossin has called for a recorded vote. Councillor Rossin.
Very opposed.
Councillor Rose.
Opposed.
Councillor Saunders.
Opposed.
Councillor Levy.
In favor?
Councillor Lauder.
In favor?
Councillor LaRue.
In favor.
Councillor Mayette.
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Duval.
In favor?
Mayor Marshall.
In favor.
That's carried.
Thank you very much. Move on to Finance and Corporate Services. It's moved by the Deputy Mayor, moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that the recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole report related to Finance and Corporate Services section be approved. Does anyone wish to pull any of these items for discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Those are carried. Agenda item number 11, presentations, consideration of reports from special committees. We have none. Motions to which notice has been previously given, we have none. Does any member of council have a notice of motion to bring forward at tonight's meeting? Seeing none, we'll go into item number 14, which is consideration of bylaws. It's moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Saunders, that the Council of the Town of Penetanguishene introduce the following bylaws: 2018-49, 2018-50, 2018-51, 2018-52, 2018-53, 2018-54, 2018-55, 2018-56, 2018-57, 2018-58, 2018-59, and 2018-60. And that all these bylaws be read a first time, deemed to be read a second time, a third time, and carried. Does anyone wish to pull any of these bylaws for discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for those. All in favor? And those are carried. Question periods from the media and public. Andrew, any questions? No? Elizabeth? Any questions from our public tonight? Seeing none, then I'll go to announcements and inquiries. Does any member of council have announcements or inquiries? Councillor LaRue, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. A couple. One is the Keenan Tarts historical tour at the Penetanguishene Museum on July 11th and 25th, and also August 15th and 22nd. 10:30 a.m. to 12 p.m., $8 per person, and you enjoy a leisurely morning cup of tea with tarts inside an original 1875 general store. Wander and encounter Mary Beck and hear about the former lumber baron Charles Beck and his family. Observe local artisans at work. Experience skills of the past, including ice cream making, quill writing, and rug cooking. And secondly, remind everybody that Canada Day, this coming Sunday, July 1st, from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Penetanguishene Centennial Museum. There are children's activities, music, barbecue, beer tent, cannon fire, free cupcakes will take place at 2 o'clock. All Things Wheels Parade contest winners at 11 a.m. So remind everybody about our Canada Day event, July 1 at the museum.
Thank you very much. Any other announcements? Councillor Rossin, please.
Thanks, Your Worship. This October's municipal election, and I think nominations are open till July 27th. Maybe the clerk can speak to that process and get people involved. Thank you very much, Stacey. Do you want to put a plug in on our municipal elections and how candidates can sign up and engage?
Absolutely happy to do that. Thank you, Councillor Rawson. Yeah, so exactly 1 month today. Today's June 27th, July 27th at 2 p.m. is the deadline. We have all the information available online, but I'm also my door is wide open to meet with any member to talk about what happens council meetings, what's expected, and any other questions they may have. We're promoting it on our social media channels, looking for candidates, and like I said, happy to provide any other information.
Thank you very much, and a couple of congratulations. Speaking of elections, so our new MPP, Jill Dunlop, got elected, so she'll get sworn in this Friday and represent Simcoe North. And also Bosley First Nation had an election just occurred, and the new chief is Chief Menig, and so congratulate both Jill and Chief Menig and his fellow councillors on Bosley First Nation. Look forward to working with them as we go forward as a municipality and with our First Nation community and with the province of Ontario. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, then I'll look for a motion to, confirmation bylaw, beg your pardon. Moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, the confirmation bylaw 2018-61 be signed and sealed by the Mayor and Clerk. And all in favor of that motion? Okay, then that is carried. And we are adjourned, Stacey, at 8:55, and Council will take a 5-minute break and we'll reconvene for committee of the whole at 9 o'clock.
Good to see you come back. Try to address the council. We put up some signs. We were allowed to refrigerate off the house. We had permission from JP Construction. We talked to members of council. Talked to Steve about coming ball out. He directly attacked only my yeah, I spoke with Andrea B over there. She changed her mind and sent the bylaw back around and tried to remove some other signs. Like it wasn't just everybody's, right? But I said, Mr. Ross and these different signs from the Bridge Center and the people showing that Doc Lunch has had their signs out from the beginning of construction, right? One of their comments was it was posted to the post. So we said, the sign is bolted to the post. If you look at the base, he's got 4x4 legs to hold it up. So there's a sign, it's yellow, 4 foot by 4 foot, and it still stands there. But those weren't good enough. Well, it wasn't good enough. All of the bunches out. You got it. Right. Yeah. See the directly attack my and only after I brought it to her attention, because Ross was brought it to her attention, my law over the weekend. There's all this. From all the meetings around the Main Street construction, it seemed like they were going to welcome signs to direct traffic around businesses and do what they could. And so when I talked to JB Construction, that's what he said, that you're willing to pay for this. I said, sure. He said, we have no issues. He says, at the beginning, we had a directional service. He said, like, through the ministry of accreditation, he said, they have an issue that you're going to have to ask for. And it becomes about so it got to my attention, and Jeff told me, I go down one round, took all the signs off. So got an email from the town stating that anybody with signs posted on these taken French very shortly after the great huge sign right over time. They stayed up there all weekend. These signs are take a picture, show where the signs are and where they're posted. And Andrew Reed said, you can ask what you want. That would have shown the signs designated construction zone, and JB Construction had permission to allow you to set these signs up if you didn't. Okay.
It's warmer out in the hall.
Hi, Maria. It's a pleasure to meet you. Yeah. You're up to the resident council meeting. Yeah, good. Well, it's probably the weather today. So I hear this weekend is supposed to be yeah. That's right. You guys make it happen. Yeah.
Bye bye, Dad.
Okay. Good. Yeah, there'll be other treats for sure. That's good. But we still have to do that.
And I might say.
You guys are moving quick. You guys are moving quick.
Alrighty, folks, I'll call us back to order for our committee of the whole meeting. So we have a quorum here. First item in front of us is the committee of the whole agenda and recommended action of committee of the whole agenda for June 27, 2018 be approved as presented. Mover and seconder for that, please. Councilor Rawson, Councilor LaRue. Any comments or questions on the agenda in front of us? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Does any member of council have a pecuniary interest in this particular session tonight? Seeing none at this time, if you find yourself in that spot as we move along, let us know. We'll address it appropriately. Item number 4 is presentations and delegations from all sections. We have none of those. So going on to transportation and environmental services, and I'll turn the chair over to Councilor Rustin, please.
Thank you, Worship. 5A is our consent agenda. We have 3 items. The transit ridership updates and transit update and Midland Penn-Tension Transit Committee minutes. Any members wish to fill any of these items for further debate? Deputy Mayor.
I would ask about the transit ridership update. I know that there is.
So we'll pull that item. Any other member have any further So we'll vote on the remaining items. Mayor, do you want to turn your mic off there? So it's recommended the following consent agenda items having been given due consideration be received for information and update. I move and second on the remaining two items. Mayor Marshall, and seconded by Councilor Watt. Call for the vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? That is carried. And Deputy Mayor, number 1.
Yes, it is a question in reference to the transit and ridership. I understand that there will be a special bus for the fireworks that will be in Midland. Brian, could you give us a little bit of information about that?
Thank you, through Councillor Rawson to the Deputy Mayor. We do have dedicated shuttle bus service with the town of Midland running on Sunday for Canada Day fireworks. It's going to be running between Penetang Machine and Midland. So it'll be going down the main streets through the detour route and then turning back, heading back to Midland. During the day, they'll have events at the North Simcoe Recreation Center in Midland, where they have events being held within the park there. And switching later in that evening to dropping passengers off between Penetang Machine and Midland to the waterfront where the actual fireworks are going to be held.
Thank you, Brian. Where at 4 o'clock, it was the fireworks primarily that I was interested in people attending. Where will the bus pick up people on the main street or?
Yes, it'll still function as a flag down service. So anybody along the actual dedicated route is able to flag down the bus as long as it's in a safe area to do so, and the bus will be able to pull over and pick up anybody.
And it will operate from 4 to
midnight.
To midnight.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor, I assume you're going to move that motion. Sorry, Councilor, I have a follow-up on transit rider?
Yes, please.
It's to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brian, if I might just ask a very simple request for the future. The March date shows costs at $8,700 as opposed to January and February at $2,500 and $1,600. So certainly a tremendous increase. And in reading the entire agenda, you do see that in the transit minutes for the transit committee minutes, you see that there was a problem with our bus, and of course I also noticed our bus was off the road and whatnot. So that was a maintenance issue. But what I'd like to ask is that in the future, if there is a significant change like this, when I first read the report, I spent a while looking at it and trying to understand that number. So maybe it would be good just to have little bullets saying that, here's a significant change here and this is why it was. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Councilor Lauder. Any further members have any comments on the transit ridership update? Look for a mover. Moved by Councilor Levy, seconder. Councilor Little will call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. B is matters for consideration. We have one item. It's a verbal update from the Director of Public Works for the Main Street Construction Project. Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our contractor, JB Enterprises, has constructed sanitary and storm sewers as far as the north side of the Main and Robert Street intersection. They extended those services through their mainline crew, which extended both the sanitary and water simultaneously. So they've completed those sections of storm sewer and sanitary sewer just short of the Robert Street and Main Street intersection. The water main is following in behind it with another servicing crew, and another crew is following in behind that crew with the actual coring or construction of the actual road bed and placement of the granular B material. That should be completed by this Friday to just short of Robert Street intersection. They're purposely leaving the Robert Street and Main Street intersection open for this weekend. They didn't want to actually go into the intersection over the long weekend, so they'll be proceeding with the milling and existing asphalt removals within the intersection in the coming week. That work will be a significant amount of work. There's storm, sanitary, water main works in that intersection. So that'll be completed within that intersection over the course of the next 2 weeks. Within the next 2 weeks, the curb and asphalt will be placed on the next section of the main street from Tessier to just north of Robert Street. And that is the scope of our update for this week.
Thank you, Brian. Brian, maybe if it would help for you, I think the communication's been great on Main Street. Maybe if we could just add the piece that the clerk puts out, I think every week or you put every week, we can just add that here, just so we've got a record that people can reference in the future. I appreciate it. Do any members have any questions for Brian regarding the Main Street update? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering, Brian, I've had a lot of people talk to me about Peel Street. And we all know that people are coming to the main, they're going right, and then they're going left. And I know that there are signs there, but I just wondered if it would be a possibility to actually put the yellow the arrows, that if that could be a consideration. I know that the signs are there, but sometimes people don't read the signs. If they saw the yellow arrow indicating that it is one way, maybe that would help a little bit. I've had different people say that I know accidents haven't happened to date, and we hope that there aren't any, but there's a lot that come pretty close. So I'm just throwing that out for something to look at. Thank you.
Sorry, just to clarify, through to the Deputy Mayor, so is this additional signage you're speaking of, Deputy Mayor, or is line painting? Or?
It's the line painting into the road. If there was one, perhaps as you go into Peel Street, and one maybe a little further down, that indicates that it is only a one-way. It's just a suggestion.
Thank you.
Any other member have any questions for Brian regarding our Main Street construction project? Seeing none. Thank you, Brian, for that. C, referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. We have one, the Thompson Road West extension options. Any other members have any further items to add to referrals? Seeing none, I need a mover and a seconder for our referrals. Moved by Councilor Roux, seconded by Councilor Lauder. That the Transportation Environmental Services section endorse the following additions and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. We'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Question period from the media and public. Seeing none. Mr. Kedzie, I'll give you over to the podium if you don't mind, please.
No, I think that was
We've come up with a little problem with some signs being put up and taken down. When I approached the town, trying to figure out who was the authority to speak to about putting up some signs, I was directed to JB Construction. When I spoke with the gentleman from JB Construction, Dave was his first name, he had no issues with me putting up any signs if I was willing to pay for it. I brought it to his attention. The Doc Lynch had great success with the signs that he has put up. I wasn't willing to put up such a large sign, as you can see. These were the signs that were erected throughout the town. When I first put them up, I had put them on some of the directional signs. Dave told me at the time if there was any issues with them being on the directional signs that I would have to remove them. Dave Hamlin came down and spoke with me and said, Mike, we have an issue now with those signs being on the directional signs because it's causing some confusion. So Dave and I walked around the community, took down the signs that were in conflict, and he also mentioned at the time that the bylaw had issues with these signs being posted in the community as well. So I directed him that I had no concerns through the bylaw that I was aware of, but seeing you bring it to my attention, I would like to speak to bylaw on this matter. I was never contacted through bylaw at all. Members of the community told me that bylaw had went around and ripped these signs right off the post. So I asked to have a meeting with Andrea. When I spoke with Andrea, I asked to have the pictures of where these signs were posted before they were removed. She told me bluntly that there's no chance that I'll ever receive those pictures, and she returned 4 of the 16 signs, as you can see. they were very well ripped off the posts, not taken down. And the other ones, I just have to suspect that were so badly damaged that they could not be returned. So I spoke to members of the council and asked them how to approach this matter and whatever happened to council's decisions to help the businesses during this difficult period to survive this construction. And all I was asking for was at my own expense to be able to put up signs for my business and allow them to be at a point where, as the construction moved, I could remove the signs and place them in the detoured sections so people would know how to get to my business. One of the things Mrs. Andrew pointed out, that my signs do not have an address on them. So I politely reported to her that none of the signs that are out there have any address to any of the businesses. And I pointed to her as well that garage sale signs, other signs throughout the community have been put up there, and bylaw had taken no effort to take them down. And other businesses that have put up these signs, there was no effort to take them down. Shortly after that, she sent bylaw back out around to take down some more signs. Over the weekend, the French Center had placed the sign directly right on their directional signs, and it stayed there all weekend long. The dock lunch, as I have pictures, the first signs that were ever posted were bolted to the telephone post, as you can see from these pictures, if I could pass them around to council, that even though it has wooden pillars on there, there's nothing to hold the pillars up. If you look at the back side, you can clearly see that it's bolted to the post. That sign still stands as we stand today. I'm asking council to reimburse me for the cost of these signs and allow businesses to put up signs in the directional of their business that's routed out without being destroyed by bylaw.
Thanks, Mike. I'll have the CEO follow up with you regarding this. Any members have any questions or comments from the business inquiry? Thanks, Mike. Any other members have any questions from the public? Deputy Mayor, it's back to you.
Actually, thank you. It's back me again. Sorry. So Recreation Community Services. So I think it's
Sorry.
It's all good.
For the record, the hair is back to you. I was looking at it either way.
It's all good. It's all good. That's a little room.
Thank you, Your Worship. Consent agenda, recommended action, following consent agenda items having been given due consideration, be received for information. The Heritage Committee status, the Penetanguishene Library Board minutes dated May 28th, Penetanguishene Trails Committee minutes dated May 8th. Seniors Center Committee of the Whole Staff Report, Seniors Center 2018. Does anyone wish to pull any of these items? I would actually ask our Director of Recreation to give us a bit of an insight and update on the COW Staff Report, Senior Center, item 4. I would call the vote on the other items. Moved by Councillor Boston, seconded by Councillor LaRose. All in favor? Okay. Sherry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my analysis and review of the Senior Center referral item, looking at funding at some of the local centers, the Askanuma Senior Center, the place in Palm Beach, it's called the Georgian Shore Swinging Senior Center. We saw the beach as well as municipalities opening a new senior center, and they're all being funded through the Seniors Active Living Center grant program. So that's something, once you're in the program, then you get annual funding around $45,000 to keep it operational. There's no announcements at this time alluding to taking on any more funding of any additional centers. Did a review of the service delivery review recommendations, and there's two that I think relate to this referral item. And one is that how council has expedited the feasibility study for recreation programming and looking at outsourcing recreation programming. So essentially, the operation of the senior center is providing recreation programming for seniors within their own center. So adding additional recreation programming is counterintuitive to what the service delivery is recommending. So I am going to include that in the feasibility study when it's released this year to look at the feasibility of a senior center in addition to third-party operations of our recreation program. The other piece in the service delivery review was taking more of a North Simcoe approach to recreation programming. So creating a North Simcoe forum to make sure that municipalities aren't duplicating efforts of what's being offered. So currently, as I just explained, there is a senior center that operates in Midland. There's one that operates in Tiny as well. I did reach out and meet with the club manager in Tiny to see if they could expand their operations to include running some programming here in Midland. And unfortunately, their board does not want to entertain that at this time. However, that turnover of the board is annual, so that may change. I've reached out to Aspenley as well to see if there's some partnership, and they're going to talk to their board and get back to me about that piece. Looking at current locations in the municipality, the curling club, the arena, the library, and Georgian Village all have potential to house some potential programming for seniors should the municipality get something up and running. Based on the centers that I did reach out to Wasaga Beach, we anticipate that getting some seniors programming up and running in an existing facility would cost the municipality approximately $100,000 annually without any funding. So at this time, unless directed otherwise by council, my steps were going to be to include the senior center within the feasibility study for recreation programs, as well as continue to look for potential partnerships with existing third parties to help facilitate some programming for seniors in the town and facilities.
Very good, thank you, Sherry. Any members of council have questions or concerns? So I think then with all of that said, we will just continue with this and carry on to the feasibility study plan. Okay, can I have a mover? Deputy Mayor, Seconder, Councillor Lauder, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Referrals. Oh, we have the matter for the Community Emergency Response Team fee waiver. Recommended action that the 100% fee waiver request for the use of the lounge by the Community Emergency Response Team be approved as requested for the purposes of conducting training meetings. The Emergency Response Team are a unit that supplies services to the municipality at all special events. The use, they have approximately, I believe, 30 meetings a year using the lounge. The fee for that is $15, so we're looking at a total cost of approximately $900 a year that we're looking to waive. In turn, they provide approximately $2,000 to $3,000 in services at all our special events. So I would move that we waive the fee, and looking for a seconder. Councillor Maya, any questions or concerns? Councillor Rawson.
I'm fully supportive of this. My only question is about process. Memory serves me right, about 6 weeks ago or so, we passed a bylaw, I believe, that gave staff the delegate authority for these. I'm just wondering, does this cover that or not cover that? I'm just trying to recall that process that if we miss this.
Maybe we can ask the CAO.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor Rawson, you are recalling correct, but the threshold goes up to $500. So, being this is in excess of $500, it will come through the committee process.
Any further concerns or questions? No? All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Referrals.
Two upcoming agenda staff referrals, and do we have any to add or delete? Madam Clerk?
Just the seniors facility, should we update that to removing it to part 2 at a different time? We have part 1 to be received Q2.
It does show expected date as a multi-stage report. So, and we're looking at including it in the feasibility study. So, I would say that we just leave it.
Okay, so we'll just amend the expected date.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything further? There being none, mover, Councillor Rawson, seconder, Councillor LaRose, all in favor, carried, thank you. Media or the public, there being none, back.
Thank you very much, Councillor LaRue. We'll go on to planning and development and turn the chair over to Councillor Levy, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor Marshall. Excuse me. Going into planning and community development services, we have no consent agenda. Matters for consideration, zoning bylaw amendment application ZA2 2018, staff report PD 1857, temporary structures, result of public meeting. Recommended action that application ZA2 2018 be approved to amend the general provisions section 3.22 of zoning bylaw 2002 as amended to permit temporary structures, and that the draft zoning bylaw amendment as per staff report PD 1857 be brought to council for approval. And further, that council of Penetanguishene deems the application to be consistent with and conforming to provincial policies, the county of Simcoe official plan, and the town's official plan. And finally, that the Schedule A of the fees and charges bylaw 2018-16 be amended to include a temporary structure application fee of $25. I would ask that we have our director summarize the staff recommendation, option 1.
Thank you very much, Councillor Levy. So we held a public meeting at the last council meeting on the temporary structures. And again, I just want to reiterate that was something that may have not have been clear through the public meeting, but the purpose of this amendment is not to change or prohibit temporary structures in any place other than the front yard. So if you have a temporary garage or temporary structure that's in the backyard or the side yards of your property, those can continue to be permitted without having to come up or come down. It's only if council wishes to look at allowing these structures to be in the front yards of dwellings. And if council does wish for these temporary structures to be permissions for them in the front yard of the property, then staff have prepared an amendment that would look at those types of rules and regulations for them. Based on the comments we received at the public meeting, there were some minor adjustments made to the draft bylaw. Specifically, we added anchoring to the temporary structure in the definition. We included a maximum height of 4.5 meters, and we also restricted them from the site triangle, which would not make sure that there are sight lines visible. So those are how staff responded to the comments that we received from the public. There were a number of other comments, and they're summarized in the staff report, but my opinion is that they weren't appropriate to be in a zoning bylaw amendment. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, but that's about as brief as I could be.
Thank you very much to the director for that good summary and terrific work on this file. It's been difficult. It's no easy answer, and I know a lot of council are grappling with this. So question, first of all, mover, Councillor Rawson. Were you moving that? Seconder? Councillor LaRue, second. Well, why people look excited about this one? Okay, you had a question. Go.
We've had a lot of participation. We've had a lot of participation on that sort of one, so it's some heavy planning items, and I'm amazed the number of people that are interested in chickens and temporary shelters. This week is graduation week. 2 weeks ago, this place was packed with people wanting to speak to temporary shelters. And I've had people talk to me that I'm surprised would have been want to talk about this temporary shelters. If we move forward with whatever we do tonight, this will get adopted when we meet again. If something special is called in the summer, it'll be adopted then, or in September when we're back. I think we should just defer this till September. When people are thinking back to when they're thinking, when people want to participate and be involved. I'm sure people would love to be involved today, but it's a busy end of school season, it's graduation time, and people that want to be here can't be here, and let's just give it some time to hear some thoughts, and let's just dig back when we can complete the normal process Because again, if we adopt something tonight, we're 2 months away till we finalize it, let's just give it time and rejig in September when we're all back together. I'd like to defer this, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. And the only issue with that would be the ongoing bylaw not enforcing the existing rules. We'd have to adjust. I'd ask Andrea to address that if you don't mind.
Thank you very much, Councillor Levy, through you to Councillor Rawson, and for Council's benefit. Deferring of this recommendation won't necessarily impact consideration of it in September. We would still continue to be staying in enforcement throughout the summer if this recommendation were to go forward or not to go forward until the next council meeting. So I have no concerns with the deferral on this.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, and just to be clear, this would continue to mean that we will stay enforcement of the zoning bylaw so that these structures will continue to be allowed up until council makes a decision in the fall.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion?
You can't have a motion to defer, you got to vote in a second, you got to vote.
Oh, okay, indeed, we'll have a vote. All in favor?
So I guess nothing to say.
I was instructed, Councillor Leroy, I couldn't have discussion.
Well, I'm opposed.
To deferring?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, motion was carried to defer this issue until September. Thank you very much, and thank you very much to all of the people that did respond and attend the public meeting on this. Thank you, Councillor Rawson, as well. Okay. And I thought we were going to have great discussion on that. I was ready. Yes. Okay. Referrals to upcoming agenda and staff. Sorry. There are none. I guess we're done. Question period for media and public. Andrew? Elizabeth? Public? No? Okay, thank you. Back to Karen.
Thank you very much, Councilor Levy. We'll go on to Finance and Corporate Services and turn the chair over to the Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Under consent agenda, recommended action of the following consent agenda items having been given due consideration and received for information. New regulations to the Fire Prevention Act, Police Service Board meetings, Council information package. Are any of these items, does anybody want to pull any of these items? Seeing none, I'd ask for a mover. Councilor Mayotte, seconded by His Worship. All those in favor? Carried. Matters for consideration are 2017 taxation surplus analysis. Recommended action that the allocation of the 2017 taxation surplus be approved as presented. I would ask our Treasurer Carrie perhaps to give us some highlights. We do have a very thorough report, but Carrie, if you could speak to a few things. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The 2017 taxation surplus analysis report identifies the 2017 final taxation surplus of just over $311,000. About $302,000 is from the operating side, and just about $10,000 is from our capital budget. The 2017 rate surplus is also presented, which is at $899,000. And obviously those are for the rate-supported departments, building, water, wastewater, and the wharf, and their respective surpluses that form that $899,000 have already been transferred to their life cycle reserve funds. In the report, I also wanted to identify the major drivers of where the surplus accumulated from, and I did present some of the larger surplus budget lines for council's information. And I guess just to summarize, I would say that In summary, the major operating surplus totals about $65,000 from increased revenue sources, such as supplemental tax bills and omits, planning fees, lottery licensing, recreation programming and events revenues. The next one at about $57,000 was general cost savings and efficiencies found departmentally. The third item identified, the third largest item, is the $55,000 corporate contingency budget line that was not utilized. There was about $50,000 under property taxation for lower tax refunds and rebates that were issued in 2017. Insurance deductible payouts was about $43,000 lower than budgeted. Volunteer firefighter expenses were lower than budgeted by about $21,000. And in planning and development, there's about $21,000 lower than budgeted related to part-time wages and benefits for a position that was partially vacant in 2017. So those are that's basically a summary of what the major drivers departmentally of that taxation surplus is. And as well, my recommendation in terms of for council's consideration on how to allocate that 2017 surplus, $173,725 be transferred to the town's legal reserve for any anticipated 2019 costs associated with the Queen's Court appeal. In addition to the 2018 approval to use the current legal reserve of $26,000 and change, that would basically earmark and tuck away about $200,000 towards those anticipated costs. $50,000 be transferred to the town's contingency reserve from the contingency budget. The balance of approximately just over $87,000 to be transferred to the town's contingency reserve to provide resources to address potential council decisions made related to the town's compensation review or any other related future funding decisions presented to council related to that. I also wanted to just mention that item 1 being the anticipated legal costs, and item 3 being the anticipated compensation review costs. If that is more than sufficient to cover the actual costs, that we could represent any surplus funds back to council for consideration for debt reduction.
Thank you very much, Carrie. Are there questions? Okay, we have moved by Councillor Saunders, seconded by Councillor Leroux. Yes. There's no discussion. Yes, Your Worship.
Sorry, I'd like to, normally what we do with our surplus is a chance to pay down debt, but it's also a chance for folks like Georgian Bay General Hospital Foundation to request the donations towards the CT scanners or Community Reach or some of those other municipalities, or some of those other charities. So our charitable donation undertaking at the town of Simcoe, the town of Penetangmachine, is that if we have a surplus, then we entertain capital requirements of some of those groups. So my understanding is we do not have those requests in. My understanding is because those groups have not been aware that we have a surplus and that the opportunity to request funding is before them, and the time is now to do that. Further complicating that is the Georgian Bay General Hospital Foundation. We had an ongoing commitment to them at the end of the last year, so under a new process, I'd simply like to refer this back to staff for the summer so the staff can reach out to those groups. So when we reconvene in late August, early September, I will recognize as a council if any of those groups are looking for money, and then we can actually make that part of that overall discussion. So I'm not against the motion, I'm just uncomfortable that our groups that normally come to us to make this request at this time, because of several changes, have not had that opportunity. So I'd actually like to refer this back to staff. And I'd look for a seconder to do that if I could. Thank you, Councillor Rossi.
Okay, is there any discussion on what the mayor's been talking about? Seeing none, I will, so that is being, that's the motion that's on the floor, that it's to be deferred for. Referred.
So they can actually, staff can reach out to those groups and communicate.
All right, thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. All right. I just have to find my spot again. I guess before we leave that subject, I just would like to congratulate staff on their cost savings and efficiencies that have taken place in a lot of the departments. So kudos to them for watching every cent they spend. Thank you. Referrals to upcoming staff week. Oh, that's recreation. I guess I'm not where I should be. Well, I'm here, but our referrals, the Finance and Corporate Services section endorses the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas. Our guest house loan forgiveness requests that we will deal with in the fall, I suppose. Election 2018, finance insurance joint review, and code of conduct. Is there anything to remove or add? Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to add the item of towing. And you might be well saying to yourself, what's that all about? Let me explain. I was asked by a citizen on the street the other day why it was that we awarded our towing contract to one company versus another company when their proposals were exactly the same. Same rates, same everything. And of course, being a very knowledgeable counselor, I said, I have no idea. But I would look into it, and so I looked into it, and I spoke to our clerk about the issue, and she admitted a certain amount of frustration as well, because evidently first of all, this item doesn't come to council. We never ever made a decision on towing contracts. And so, Stacy admitted a certain frustration in dealing with this issue for the very reason that you get two companies, in this case 3 companies, who have identical kind of towing rates. How do you pick one of them? And that led to a conversation about, is there a need for council to pick one of them? Is there a need for staff to pick one of them? And so we discussed it at the last Police Services Board. And the consensus there seemed to be, no, there's really no reason why we have to make a selection. There's no reason why this has to be tendered. And one of the members of the Police Services Board from an adjacent community said that what they did in Wasaga Beach was get out of the business of tendering for their towing contracts, which led to an unexpected outcome. Evidently, it wasn't just the local Wasaga Beach towing companies that were getting involved in the business, but people were coming all the way up from Toronto and towing vehicles in Wasaga Beach, and then taking those vehicles all the way back to their yards in Toronto. And so what Wasaga Beach did to control that was institute a licensing system. And any of the local, understood local towing companies can apply for a license. It's not an expensive license. And once the license is awarded, the ordinary consumer can use any of the towing companies. Equally, the OPP, when they assign, will sign on a scheduled kind of basis. So, to bring all this to conclusion, what I would like to propose is that we put this issue of towing onto a future agenda, giving Stacy the entire summer to look into this issue of whether or not licensing is a good idea, and bring us back a report at a future meeting on this issue. And I would suggest perhaps the 4th quarter might be appropriate.
Thank you very much, Councillor Saunders. You're putting that on. I guess we need a motion, so it's moved by you, seconded by Councillor Rawson, that should be added to our referral items. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you, Council. Back to you, Your Worship.
And mover and seconder to adjourn. I think Stacy's looked 9:43. Mover and seconder to adjourn tonight's meeting. Councillor Lada, Councillor LaRue, all in favor? We're adjourned. Have a great summer, everybody. Thanks.
But you know, when I worked these,